So give us a weakness that having this gap has exposed to you. You're watching games on TV all the time. You're traveling around the country, viewing different basketball operations. Give us a weakness that you might not have known was a weakness, but now you know when you go back, there's another level to what you were contributing.
Yeah, we've been successful at these places because those plans are all kind of agile. We're kind of coming in. You think like Urban Meyer comes in Ohio State. He's like, this is what we're doing, one thing, and this is how we're attacking it. Well,
Yeah.
you can do that when you have every resource known to man. All right. When you have everything known to man at your disposal, you can come in and just set a tone and you can do all that stuff. But a lot of times you're taking over a job where they didn't have the best players in the country. Maybe the last coach didn't do a great job. Maybe the last coach had an incident that happened. The reason these jobs are coming open isn't because they were necessarily handled great all the time, including the one that I left open, right? So when you get there, I feel like being agile is important. I'm really big in coming to an athletic department, and it's really simple, Jeff. Like a men's basketball coach or football coach in a lot of these athletic departments, they don't interact with anybody, and I'm not about that. I want everyone to feel included. I want to help them any way that I can help them. We've been doing this now for 3 months. You kind of tell with me, like, if I can help you with something, I'm going to help you. And so I enjoy doing that. But with that, I need to be a better job of my time and saying like, hey, maybe I don't need to go to volleyball practice today. Maybe I need to stay locked in on this and keep our guys on edge a little bit. I always had our guys go to like a ton of events and stuff on campus. Maybe when it's a crucial part of the year, it needs to be like, hey guys, like, I think we got to lock in and stay locked in where we are. So trying to make those kind of adjustments, being agile sometimes is a really strength, but it can be a big weakness too. If you come in, they say, hey, like you only got 45 minutes of practice today. I need to be more demanding. Like, hey, we need 2.5 hours of practice today. This is Division I basketball, right? So I think there's some areas where I just need to put my foot down even more. It wasn't that I didn't know what we needed to do. Like I got to GW. And one of the big things I talked about was like strength coach. I wanted to have a guy that I brought in, a guy that I knew, a guy that was connected with me. And, my dad's got a track background, so I see track and I see conditioning a little bit differently, and I see things a little bit differently. So having that alignment with people I thought was really important. From day one, I was kind of fighting to get a person in there that I had alignment with. We didn't get that. And so it's, hey, you're forced to kind of figure it out. You don't get everything you want in life. I'm really good with that. We get to a month. Like, I think we get to like 4 weeks for the season. That guy leaves, so now we get a new guy in. And so it's like, man, if we would have made this move in April, then we would be in a good place, right? And so instead, I'm a team member, so hey, we're gonna do this. Guy leaves about a month before, which is fine. Those things kind of happen. But now we're trying to figure out what we're gonna do with that.
Cut out on me on that last part. You cut out on me.
Yeah. So I said, so guy leaves about a month before. And so now our entire program's kind of in scrambles trying to figure out, well, when can we get a new guy in? How can we build it? And remember, this is the first year. So we're trying to set the tone of how we're going to operate. And that strength coach is really important to be able to do that. And so now you're trying to pick a strength coach in November, December, January, instead of in April where you kind of have the pick of the litter. So like I look back and I go, and I don't want this to sound like I'm complaining. I just look back and saying like, I should have been more dominant about this is what we need and not really allowing myself to back off of that, to be reasoned with. Because at the end of the day, the only person that it really affected was me and my team. Right. Everyone else sort of got to operate the way they wanted and everyone else got what they wanted. But the guys that it mattered most in that locker room, we didn't get what we wanted. And then subsequently during the year, we had a bunch of injuries, which, as you know, comes from what you do in the weight room. And we had a bunch of injuries, and it all stems from that kind of conversation at the beginning that I wasn't able to get my point across from. Again, I'm not complaining. You talk about what are you learning? I'm learning that like I know what our team needs, and no one knows that better than me. So don't back down.
It's your team, right? It's your team, and so
it's got to be your team.
You're not complaining, except for you recognize that there was an adjustment that needed to be made, and that was, this is my team, and if there's a gap within this, they may say this is the person or that's the person, but I've got to make sure we're operating in a way that we're going to injury prevention first step. that we're getting conditioned, that we're getting strong. I mean, we're not winning our conference, let alone the NCAAs. If we're not getting conditioned, we're not getting strong. We're not maintaining the entire season. I got to be there at the end of the season if we're going to win this darn thing. So, we're talking physicality there, but culture. I mean, you're the remainder of your coaching staff, to include your strength, and a lot of schools, their strength guy is a key component to their culture. And so all I'm hearing is all of that missing. And when you're talking about complaining, yeah, you're complaining about what you may not have enforced that you should have and will never allow without fight to go again is what I believe I heard there. Is that accurate?
And then I would say the last thing I did was like, I just signed a shitty contract.
Okay.
So, you walk in these situations. I've been in a tough situation before. I mean, when I took these opportunities before, they weren't necessarily great opportunities at the time, and they are now. These guys have done a great job after.
Yeah.
I feel happy because I laid a brick there to help that continue. So I always feel connected to their success. Not that I'm doing anything with it, but a part of it because we laid a brick. And so I think I just signed a contract that basically, it didn't make the institution have to buy into basketball. It was a middle of the road contract where they didn't have to say, hey, you know what? Well, we're invested in this person for 5-6 years. It was at a dollar amount, which is a lot for anybody and a lot for me. So that's not anything that's a negative. But it wasn't a lot for the university. So, we got to the end of 3 and they could part ways with us instead of doubling down and pushing forward. And when you've run contract negotiations before, that starts a year and a half before you get there.
Yeah.
And so I just think I didn't sign a contract that was worthy enough for them to ever have to put everything all in. They could just kind of wait to see what we were able to do. And in my mind, I was like, we've won everywhere we've been. We're going to be in a place where guys want to play and guys want to be. And I just didn't think I would get 3 years. I thought I'd get at least 4 years to kind of produce the threes. And really it was like 31 months.
Right on.
So, when you really look at it with all the COVID pauses and all that stuff, I mean, we really didn't have that much time. But I think what I'm learning from it is I bet on myself so much in so many of these situations that sometimes I need to have a little bit of reason instead of just putting it all on the line every time on black. Just instead of saying, hey, you know what, let's look at this reasonably and really move slower and make better decisions.
Right. And that would be black. If you're betting fully on yourself, well, then we need the components that are going to allow what allows you to be success, what allows you to make a team successful, bring a team, from A to Z.
Yeah. And there was a lot of stuff that we talked about
to Z. If you don't have the tools that are going to allow you to go there, well, it's a struggle.
Yeah. And there was a lot of stuff that we talked about in the negotiation process that would be there that I should have included in the contract that we didn't include in the contract. Things that are supposed to be added that just never got there.
Yeah.
And so you take the job on the premise that it's going to improve, not just the basketball part, but the other parts of it. And we just weren't able to get there, for whatever reason, COVID, whatever, but we just weren't able to get there. And so the job that you signed up for, it never really turned out to be the job that I signed up for. I didn't sign up for the job that was 10 years ago. I signed up for the job how we're going to put, make progression into the future. And we just never got there.
Okay.
So, when I kind of look at it, it's just it's just, you need some reasoning, and reasoning would say now, anything you talk to me about in negotiation process, we should put in the contract, and there should be dates on there. And we should make sure that those things get accomplished. And if they don't, then we should be getting more years or more money or whatever it is. But everyone's got to be committed to winning. And it can't just be those in the basketball office committed to winning. It's got to be everybody committed.
Anything I didn't ask you that you want to put out there?
You actually, we talked about the weaknesses. I think the weaknesses of taking transfers. Everyone's like so enamored with taking transfers right now. And again, I was doing it before people were doing it. So, and evaluating it, and you still have to evaluate the person. You still have to evaluate your system, whether or not that person fits into the system. I talked to so many coaches this year, and they're like, "Oh, we're great. We got this transfer from this place, And then I'll look and I'll say, man, in my mind, I'm saying, you only average like 6 points a game at games at your level. Like you're looking at the total number. Oh, he averaged 18 a game. We might have averaged 18 a game in a lower D1. You're at a high major. He's going to play 6 of those high major games. He averages 5 points a game in those high major games. That's what you're going to get. Because I've been at those levels a little bit. So I think the weaknesses are, people are taking so many of them that I don't think they're doing as good a job evaluating them.
Okay.
Or they're just looking at a number and saying, oh, this number will fit here. We need 35%. This guy will fit there. I think that's a major weakness. I think going back to trusting your eyes and knowing what's in front of you. That's what we did with our transfers. Like we didn't look at, Matt Moore averaged 2 points a game at Vanderbilt, I think, and he averaged 12 points and 7 rebounds for us. We certainly didn't look at his 2 points a game. We looked at his good games, looked at his bad games, evaluated whether or not it fit into our system or not. We did the same thing with James Bishop. We went back to his high school film, how he shot the ball, where he shot it from, all those things. Hey, does that stuff fit in? Joe Bama's still the same way. I don't think a lot of people are doing that in college basketball. I think they're just looking at data and stats and making a decision. And then I would say the hardest thing that I'm cautioning every coach about, which is just a caution. It's not like don't take transfers. It's not one of those. It's the onboarding for a transfer is different. It's like having one of your girlfriends along the way had a broken heart, and the guy before damage to do. There's some damage control to get her to trust you again. I would say that's very real when you take transfers in, of getting them to trust you, getting to understand it, getting them to understand how you want things done. It's a little bit easier for freshmen because they don't know anything. They're sort of walking in the door, eager and ready to attack whatever. And a transfer has a little bit more expectation because they've been through it a little bit more. They've got a little bit more experience. They've probably got some false expectation of how things should operate. So you just got to be able to like onboard them to how you like the culture to be handled. And not just assume that they know how you want it because they played for this guy or this guy. They don't know how you want it because they've never been with you. So taking that time to really onboard what makes you upset, what you're looking for, what makes you happy, what's acceptable. Can you come to the meetings with hats on? Can you come with flip-flops on? Can you go to class and sit in the front row? Can you sit in the back row? All these little things that matter at some places that might not matter at other places. Being able to have that discussion on the front end to just raise the level of expectation and raise the level of standard, I think is really important.
Do you enculturate, what I call enculturate, a transfer with the incoming freshman class, or do you enculturate them separate?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting. I have this workbook that I work through. We've talked about it before.
Yeah.
It goes freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year stuff that we work at. I don't know if we have a great answer for that yet because I think what's really important. I've basically started them with the freshman class in the workbook.
Jamion, you cut out on me. I don't know if it cut out on your side, but you cut out on me there.
So I basically start them off with the freshman side of the workbook because there's stuff that I don't want to skip steps, and I want them to know all perspectives of why we're operating the way that we operate. Okay. If I bring them in and just start them as junior year in the workbook, then they're going to miss a lot of important stuff that is at the beginning of that. So I think starting there, we've started there as a freshman, but the conversation is different because I am speaking with them more and asking for more of their perspective. So I'm trying to figure out, well, what did, we had Ira Lee, who unfortunately got hurt for us. He's a top 50 player in the country. Would have been a monster for us. We got hurt in the summertime. So I would ask him, like, how does Sean Miller handle this? We had a guy to play for Brad Stevens. So how did Brad Stevens handle this? So I think the dialogue is a little bit different with transfers because you can learn a lot from them. They've been through it a little bit. They understand a little bit differently. But I do think you still got to set the tone because, the way we like to operate versus the way they operate somewhere else is just different. They're not better or worse. It's just different. And, I don't want a guy getting on the bus, 30 seconds late and it would have been fine somewhere else. For us, I'm not playing him in the first half. So we got to make sure we find this level, the level of standard where we are, and just see how the differences are and kind of have those conversations. I think that's really been helpful.
Okay. So you get back in the game, go back March, April, interview process starts again. Why do they want you? Why do they want you back in the game?
Well, I'm better than ever. 3 years ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, I was a top 40 coach in this country under 40 years old. I've been in the NCAA tournament 2 times and rebuilt 3 programs. And what I've been able to learn through all 3 of those experiences just make me a better coach right now. Makes me a better community leader. It just makes me better at all aspects of my job. Having a level of, we never talk about, I don't really talk about failure. It's like you win and you learn. And that's kind of how I've always lived my life. So having an opportunity to learn from these experiences has just been super helpful. You're just going to get a better coach. You're going to get a coach who's done it, who has the respect of the players and the connection with the players. It's always recruited at a high level and always does a great job connecting the community and the fan base. You're going to get that, and you're going to probably get that at a discount than what you would have had a few years ago. So I think, for me, I'm just like, I'm thrilled to hopefully to have another opportunity because I'm like these transfers. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I'm hungry to prove, and I'm hungry to get it right and to show the world all the things that we've had a chance to learn and how that's going to benefit some great program.
What Coach Jamion brings, what Coach Christian, they call you, right? Yep. Coach Christian brings to the table the belief that he'll take your team to another level. We've heard it here today. He's ready. He's ready to every coach in the country. I'm excited to see you. I'm excited to see what the team does that you take over or become a part of. And Coach Christian, thank you so much for taking time today to jam with me. Appreciate you, man.
Always, my brother.
Winning in the margins.